Welcome to Thinkin, Bros. I'm Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner store philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. And today, we're going to be talking about can people change? Let's start with the following. Can you give me a description of your opinion on that subject? Because I feel like I've already told you a few times not to um, elaborately what I believe. Maybe you have a formed opinion. Maybe we can start out there.
Yeah. I'm trying to not let what you wrote in our notes influence me in
Mm-hmm.
my reasoning, but I think people can change. I think that's one of the things we sort of disagree on.
Yeah.
Or maybe like we probably have some common ground, but we disagree to the degree to which people can change. Um, I think that with time and consistency, even if say personality traits that are inherent to people don't change that much, they can change, and also behavior repeated can change a person's thought processes. Because I guess when we're talking about people changing, what you need to change, like at its core, what it means to change is changing the way you think, right?
Partially, I'm gonna try to give an operant definition of what I believe the question even means.
Mm.
But were
Mhm.
you gonna go on?
No, you can talk.
Thank you. So I think first of all you have to define what it means. Can people change? That's what you started with, and you said, "Can you change their thoughts?" I think that's a little bit vague because we all evolve our thoughts with time. Is it the manner in which we're thinking? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I said. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
talking about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way people think about things. I think that's um, what differentiates people, right? Like even like the big five personality traits. It's
Yeah.
the way you process what happens in the world. It's just your patterns of thinking, the way you react to a specific situation, and like some specific combination of being more or less worried about something, more or less creative about something, more or less open to new things. It creates your personality, and changing that combination, tuning it, is like a person changing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's funny. You bring up the five big traits, but the conclusion psychology has is that those specifically, the big five, are quite constant with time. That's what's
Yeah.
been found, right? But you still think using that definition of change, people can change. So that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Well, also they stay the the ordering. Okay, the rank ordering of the big five personality traits stays constant. So let's say if in your teens you rank in like the 80th percentile of something, you're gonna rank in the 80th percentile when you're 40 also. But what specifically changes, this is like research proven that this happens, people become more agreeable and more conscientious as they age. So even if you still rank in the 80th percentile of conscientiousness when you're 40, you probably increase your conscientiousness because everyone does with age. Well, not everyone, but generally that's a trend.
I see. To those not knowing what we're talking about the big five personality traits of psychology that are conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and openness to experience. But it's definitely a good nuance to add that research does indeed say that relative to other people, you remain stable. But I feel like it's not even really relevant in our conversation because anytime you refer to how much a human is something, right? How much are they good? How much are they bad? Even things as vague as that, it's always compared to other people. So if you remain relatively the same during your life, um, I mean, relative to other people, right? Percentile wise, whatever.
Mhm.
That's to me, that's exactly what it means to remain the same. Because in a world of bad people, a person who is a little bit less bad would be the best person, right? The most good. So I just mean everything is relative. So that's not even a nuance we really need to consider in our.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The what I would say is that even if that is the trend and the general rule, I I can't empirically prove to you that this is true, I guess, but I feel like if someone ranks 30th percentile in conscientiousness, that means they're not very conscientious with um, if they structure their life. Let's say someone, I don't know, goes into the army and um, gets a routine and has to do that stuff and changes his behavior so that every single day for like 2 years he acts as a conscientious person even though that's not his natural inclination. I feel like that can change someone's personality.
Okay, well that I think that's what I will eventually disagree with, but
Mhm.
we can definitely start with how I define the. I do mean so I'm gonna define change and what remains stable in people because I do believe that people cannot change um, as their core characters, and by that I mean I don't really mean the big five or whatever you want. If you want to refer
Mhm.
to psychology, that's fine. But to me, what it means is the predictors of their behavior. That's all it means. So the mental processes that determine their behavior. So I'm guessing it's a little bit like you.
What I was talking about, the predictors of their behavior, but I was talking about conscientiousness, but you're talking about uh, other factors. What do you mean?
I guess I just don't want to like categorize it or name five and stop there. I mean their core. I don't know the way their brain functions. So it's coming back to what you said in the beginning. It's just what I mean is if certain mechanisms of their brain make them act a certain way now, they are going to be the same in 10 years. And I
Okay.
don't want to name them just not to limit that conversation to the big five.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. All right. So the way I usually set up my answer to the question, can people change, is that I say that once you cross certain moral thresholds, it defines you forever. Because, okay, so let's take the extreme example. This is probably going to be during the podcast my most popular tool, like my most popular philosophical tool, to take things to the extreme to paint a picture. But if you take a murder, right? Someone has murdered somebody, they have crossed a certain moral threshold that a majority of people would not cross. So their brain and the mechanisms of their brain, their core character, has permitted them to cross a certain moral threshold in society. And while we all have the same physical ability to technically murder someone, right? As much as they do, we might be even stronger than them, more capable. It doesn't matter. The only thing differentiating a human who was able to do that from a human who, well, I guess one would say a normal human or you and me, is the fact that their brain functions in a way in which it does not prevent them or limit them from crossing this moral threshold set by, you can talk about it's inherent or the society we live in. Maybe some other societies are don't consider it as bad, but that's anyway. We can agree that it is implemented in our society. So
Not murdering. Yeah, yeah.
not murdering. Yeah, that's a loose recommendation in our society. So and the example I usually give is a mental experiment where you have to you are given the choice between two strangers of spending a night just sleeping in the same room as them. It's a dark room, whatever, you can invent anything once you understand the point. It doesn't really matter. The details don't matter. But it's a dark room, and you're told that one of them murdered someone 30 years ago, but they went through well, they were in jail for 30 years. So they went through how would you call it?
Appropriate punishment, the
Yeah,
rehabilitation.
yeah, rehabilitation process is what I would want to call it. Because if you do
Okay.
believe in change, that's what jail means, right? Reintegrating them, reteaching them, changing them into people who are um, appropriate for this society. And then there's another person about whom you're not given any information. And my argument is that it's plausible that, I don't know, 10 out of 10 times you would choose to spend the night with the person who you were not told that they have murdered someone, right? And if you do believe in change and the rehabilitation system and the reintegration into society, I feel like that kind of takes a hit just because of that um, argument. Because if you think they're viable for being released from jail after that, well, why wouldn't you feel as safe with them as you would with someone who has never murdered anyone, right? I feel like, okay, well, first of all, you can tell me if your intuition is different and there's even a case to be made that you would choose to sleep with a known murderer. But after that, what conclusions would you come to regarding that mental experiment?
Um, no, I have the same intuition for who I would choose to spend a night with, but I disagree that that brings anything at all to the argument. Um, it's just like, okay, the only thing that I know about these people is that one murdered someone 30 years ago and the other didn't,
Yeah.
and I'm given no more information, I guess. Like, yeah, I'm gonna pick the one that didn't murder someone. That doesn't make a point about people changing or not.
Well, okay, but an important part of it was the rehabilitation system. So I feel like you either have to tell me, look, I don't believe in the current system of rehabilitation. I don't believe in what prison does in reintegrating people, or you have to tell me that you don't believe in change. And we've done our best as a society with the prison system to rehabilitate them and change them into people who are shaped for this society. But change is not possible. You have to come to one of these two conclusions. Either
no, I
change
don't
is
think
not
so. Look,
possible. Okay,
the, let's say let's put it in like statistics, right?
love
The
that.
one person that did murder someone, inherently, society wise, whatever, their mental processes in a particular situation. Let's say we put those same two people, the one that murdered someone and the one that didn't murder someone, um, before anyone is murdered, in the same exact situation. They have the same motivators to kill someone, and the one person has a 70% chance of killing, and that's the one that ends up murdering the person, and the other one is different from the first and has a 10% chance of killing, and so they don't kill.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, we put them in the same situation at the
Yeah.
beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
And now, let's say the rehabilitation system does work, and it goes from, in 30 years they're put in the same situations, and the guy that murdered someone goes from 70 to 15,
Hmm.
and the other guy stays at 10. Did the person not change?
Right, and reducing their chances. What I'm saying is, this comes back to our last episode, but in judging these cases, is like I feel like we're using a little bit of a consequentialist angle where it's like you're to morally judge someone, you're operating with all the information in the world, right? You're saying, look, my prison system reduced their chance of killing from 70 to 15. But no, in fact, all we know, that's why, when people come out of jail, that they're kind of labeled with that, right? They're registered, they're ex-cons, this is their label, this is their identity. Because ultimately, if you're operating with minimal information and going through this world, there's not much you have to go with except the fact that, look, this person is not an ex-con, this person is an ex-con, right? I mean, yes, in a perfect world where we have access to infinite information about anyone or their state of mind, you would know how less likely they are now to kill someone. But what I'm saying is that when you show, again, we're taking it to the extreme, so it's kind of a favorable example for me. When you show, look, I am capable of reach of like
Crossing.
crossing. Thank you. Crossing this moral threshold in situations that, if we come back to our last episode, right? How likely is it that that person was truly in the most extreme situation possible? A situation under which, if you were put, you would also resort to murder. I don't know. You know, that's the thing. I
I'm
don't know.
not even. Yeah. I'm not. I don't think that's a good point either, because I'm not saying that we shouldn't use that heuristic. You know, we can't know what's going on inside people's heads, and we can't know if they changed or not. And I don't know much about the prison system and how. Well, I mean, reincarceration rates are super high, right? But that's because um, people that go to prison are okay. This is big five again, but they're disagreeable, and that's the sort of character they have. And I think a heuristic like that is uh, useful, but sometimes it's unfair on people because some people do change. But the thing is that you're arguing that people cannot change. I can even concede to you that in general people do not change. My point is that people can change.
Right. Okay. Um, I don't know if we should let go of what we're talking about. Maybe we'll come back to it. But
Hmm.
here's a big difference, and I don't know if I'm gonna ask this question well, but to me, assuming, well, you know, having in mind the conclusion that people cannot change, if they do come out of prison and never decide to commit a crime again, to me, they are still the murderer that has been able to not murder for the rest of their life. Okay? So here I have the example of, well, I mentioned the ex-con, but here I have the example of a recovering alcoholic, right? Once you are labeled an alcoholic and you have proven to society that you have the proclivity to become one, what you will be for the rest of your life is either an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic. 20 years ago, 20 years after, 40 years after, it has changed who you are. You are now not a person who has never had a problem with alcohol. You are now a person resisting a problem with alcohol. And that could not be said about you and me, right? So again, I'm using it.
Speak for yourself.
I'm not using I'm using quite an extreme example. Uh, it's not even that extreme, right? It's a little bit
Yeah,
less
yeah, yeah.
than murder is, but I think there is something to be said about these, you know, extreme cases of alcoholism and the fact that once you enter in that category and you're labeled an alcoholic, now all you will ever be in your life is either an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic, right? Or a recovered alcoholic. I'm not sure about the terminology like years and years later when you have proven that you know you can resist this vice. But um and I think that brings me to another maybe okay, do you have a lot to say about what I have just said because my next point might kind of derail that conversation.
I have something to say. I mean, I think. What are you even saying? You're saying, like, I get that most of the experience we have with alcoholics, I think, is from movies. But people say like, once you're an alcoholic for life, right?
Yeah.
And you're either having the problem right now, or you're resisting temptation uh, to bring that problem back, right? And I mean, sure, but I think you talked about someone that's a recovered alcoholic, let's say, that hasn't drunk in 30 years. Um, but you're discounting the change that represents too. Like, okay, you can say that he's a recovered alcoholic and you can label him that because he had that problem in the past, but he had that problem in the past. And now, even if he's more vulnerable to alcoholism, he's resisting it. He changed. Uh, he wasn't the way he is now when he was 20, because he was losing to alcoholism, and now he's winning.
Uh-huh. Okay, that brings me exactly to my next point. So, okay, let me just reframe what I said before about this point. So, in um in defining the core character of someone who has alcohol issues, you know, there's always this maybe psychological example where you're just like, let's say you have the alcoholism gene, right? You're just born with it. That's something.
Hmm.
So your proclivity to alcoholism goes from, you know, uh, 0 to 15% to, 40 to 80% or something like that. And that's something that stays with you. What I mean is that in my definition of do people change, what exactly does change mean? What is stable? If the answer is no, people don't change. It was core characters that predict behavior. What I'm saying is that if you have the alcoholism gene, which I have previously defined, that's what you are and you will always be, right? So, okay, and my next point is the following. I What we end up doing in life, I differentiate from who we are. The legacy we leave, I differentiate it from um, our identity because, and this is my infinity theory. I think you mentioned it. You mentioned percentages earlier, but this is what it will be, right? You mentioned going in the past and you having 10% chance of killing someone and whatever.
Sure, sure.
So my infinity theory is I judge everyone as though our lives are infinite. So if we prolong, like we take today, no one ages, nothing, absolutely nothing changes with the Earth. It's not going to explode. Climate change stops, or maybe that's a myth. Who knows? Maybe that's for another episode. But
Don't say that, dude.
okay, well, yeah, that's going to get clipped out of context. But um, what I'm saying is, every single person, I judge them to the infinity. Okay, because if you do have a 10% murder chance, I want you with me because let's say for for 90% of infinity, you're not going to kill me, right? It is the safer bet. And they are not going to kill me for 30% of infinity. So what I'm saying is because statistics are what they are, a recovering alcoholic could identify as an alcoholic for 10 years and then be able to kind of fight that vice and decide to not act according to their character, which is what I call like identity, for another 40 years. What I'm saying is if we all lived for infinity and you had to bet on someone becoming an alcoholic again, would you bet on the alcoholic or on someone like me, right? Or you?
Okay, yeah, I think that bugged me again. I think I don't like when you compare two people. That doesn't matter. We need to compare one person throughout time to themselves because
Oh,
that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people changing.
yeah, but okay, I'm a little bit selfish and I kind of see everything. Okay, not to exaggerate and to say that I am the center of my own universe, but I do I do develop my philosophies around the fact that I am operating in this world, and this is I think part of our mission as a podcast to kind of come to conclusions about philosophy that are practical and applicable in real life, applicable. And to me, what this means is that again, I keep using this example, right? Let's say you were to give me, yeah, talking about comparing a person to themselves, but what I'm saying is, if you are the center of your own universe and everything you have morally concluded affects only your actions, let's come back to this, kind of weak, more philosophical mind experiment, um, thought experiment. Sorry for the stutters. If you were to bet, if you were to get to be given $1,000 to send someone in a bar and not drink for 3 hours, would you send an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic, or would you send me? Well, again, I'm saying me, but what I mean is someone who has never had a problem with alcohol. And this is how I see my decisions in life, right? If someone has betrayed me in something, once that happens to me, they are the person who does that. Contrarily to you, who has never done that to me, and I see your identity as someone who has never done that. I don't care how much self improvement they do, how much, uh, you know, good book reading they do. To me, because I'm operating with minimal information and I don't have access to the entirety of their brain or their future, statistically, it is much safer to assume that. And I'm going to use a quote here, so it's going to be unfair because I'm the one who did the research about this episode.
I should say I agree with what you're saying right now. You should bet on that person, and I don't think it matters to what we're talking about.
Okay, but I'm going to still say the quote. Past action is the best predictor of future action. That comes from the book Think Again, who quoted another book. But, okay, what I'm saying is, okay, do you see how maybe your definition of changing is a little bit different because you judge people from, let's say, again, the perspective of a higher being or a third person view, while I am judging from my side, what what would be a
But you're a
de-
higher being, no?
I'd never said that. Don't put words in my mouth. But what I'm trying to
Thank you.
say is that if you do see life a little bit more selfishly, from your perspective, was better proof to not trust someone than them having betrayed you? What is better proof to believe that they're going to commit a crime than them having committed a crime? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, there is no better proof that they did it in the past that they'll do it again.
Yeah.
That's their tendency, and I still think people can change.
Well, that's not much of an argument.
What do you mean? I mean, you're saying it's a predictor, okay? You said it yourself. We're going off limited information. We don't know what happens in. Maybe I have this perspective because um, in my own mind, I've seen my thought processes change, and I think about the world differently now than I did 2 years ago. Can't you see that? Can't you say that about yourself?
I think I'm becoming. It's something I say a lot, but I think I'm becoming more myself. I think I'm the character traits I had in the past are just becoming more extreme because I'm gaining confidence in myself and maybe expressing them more tactfully. Let's say, outspoken confidence is now a little bit of a quieter confidence because I've known how to I've learned how to handle that confidence, but I don't know. I feel sensibly
Okay,
the
but
same.
someone someone who saw you in the past showing off, and at first chance you get, you show off your skills and your accomplishments, and now they see you today, and let's suppose that you changed and you wouldn't do that today, and you've become not a show off. I'm clinging to that because that's what you talked about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I know. In saying that people don't change, it's almost like I'm saying there is no improvement. Correct?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm saying, I guess. But y- yeah, I think you're right in saying that we're not arguing the same thing because you're saying their core character doesn't change, and I'm saying along a dimension, along some flaw, they can evolve and become better. But I think my definition is right. That's what change is.
Well, you think your definition is right. That's great for you. That's very fortunate. But um, this is the
That was my segue to talking about the definitions and saying why you disagree with mine, and yeah.
Okay. What I'm saying is, I think if you take my infinity example and you accept it, right, fully accept it, everything that we are, everything that we accomplish in life, the legacy we leave behind, is kind of never aligned with what we are at our core. But what I'm saying is, on average, if you do understand someone at their core, it will it will be a pretty good predictor of their legacy. So what I mean by that is, let's say someone has the alcoholic gene, right? Assuming that's something that exists, most of them will have alcoholism for a certain amount of time. When they stop and they decide to stop and decide to suppress that identity in themselves, they might, finish their life with 20% of their life being a recovered alcoholic, and the other, so 20% of their life is going to be spent suppressing that part of their identity. So what they're going to leave on earth as a legacy is someone who was not what I'm saying their core character is, right? They're someone who was not an alcoholic for 20 years of their life. So does that mean change? To me, that doesn't mean change. Specifically because the way we frame it is they are a recovered alcoholic or the recovering alcoholic, someone who is resisting their core identity. You understand? So, and in viewed in this light, I think resisting your core identity and resisting who you are as a person is a good thing in some senses. Because specifically, you cannot be born um, a perfect person. If we were all born with perfect characters, I feel like there wouldn't be even any, you know, any point in suppressing character flaws or living not in accordance to that if we were are all born perfect. We When people say to embrace who they are, I don't mean they mean that full. I don't think they mean that fully. I think they mean that partially, and that partially means only the good parts of them, right? Embrace that you are, let's say, I don't know, let's come back to your big five. Embrace that you are extroverted, right? You are given energy in interacting with people. Don't limit yourself in that. They don't mean you're an aggressive person at your core. Don't suppress that. Become yourself, right? Submerge yourself in yourself. What I'm saying is there are certain character traits which we are, but we might never do, right? Maybe what I was someone outspoken about their confidence. Again, this is a virtual person that we're not talking about me, obviously. Um, who who was outspoken about their confidence, but has thought better of it and has realized that that's not appropriate for this world. Maybe if I was alone in the universe, I'd keep doing that. But because I have to adapt to other people, I have to suppress that part of myself. And I still am that thing, even if I don't do that
Is
for
that
the
what it
next
is?
80 years of my life. That's how I see it. I am that person at my core because if you let me free, you you know I am a legend style. You leave me as the last person on earth. Who and then you extend my life to infinity. Who would not say that? I would just come back to. I would regress to the person that I was when I kind of became an individual to begin with, right? Like at 18 or something. That's how I see it.
Okay, but okay, is that how you feel about you becoming um, more silently confident? Because what you're saying is like what I'm hearing from you is that you're more silently confident because you strategically decided that that's the best social strategy to get people to like you or to get to save energy or to whatever, and you feel at your core a temptation to to be outspoken in your confidence, but you suppress it because you think it's a better strategy.
Well, I think all well, do I think all change is kind of intentional? I do think when you kind of even become a person again around 18 and you develop, well, someone can say you have character traits. I think
Someone can say you have character
no, I'm
traits.
just mean like your identity is so flexible before that it's not even worth like bringing it into the conversation. When I say people can't change, I do mean like kind of after childhood and adolescence. Yeah. Okay. So do I think that I constantly keep suppressing it? No, but I do think I intentionally and consciously went through that change. And you're saying, oh, just to please society, to be more liked by people. Well, in fact, a bigger pressure is not to be disliked by people. I know a lot of people who, I don't know, hurt or displeased with my behavior. And it was a conscious choice, in fact, right? The virtual person whom we're imagining, uh, it was their conscious choice to change.
Okay, but you just said that at the beginning you had that temptation, and then you consciously thought about it, you decided to change, and now you don't feel that temptation anymore. Isn't that what you said?
I don't think I said I don't feel that temptation anymore, but it's definitely easier to do the
Because
behavior that doesn't align with my character.
if I'm imagining, I'm like drawing a parallel to me. I think when I was growing up, or like later in my teens, the most recent flaw I feel like I'm fixing right now is that I was uh, too insecure, and it showed in the way I acted, I think. And now I'm becoming more confident. Um, but I'm not consciously thinking about that sort of stuff. I think through um, my behavior, through my accomplishments, actually doing something. You know, there's a lot of things that can change you. Maybe for you, it's active thought process that you rationalize why you should not be that way, and then you convince yourself, and eventually it becomes natural. Or it can be behavior, which you act out something in the world, and then you that behavior sort of becomes um, something that changes your thought processes too. There's many ways to change, and now I'm becoming more confident, but uh, not because I'm suppressing my inborn insecurity. Maybe you would say that insecurity is not part of my
Core character.
core character. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, look. I understand, but the thing is, if someone starts off with insecurity, that is something that is going to haunt them for the rest of their life. And if someone starts off with an uh immeasurable ego, I feel like that's the thing they're going to be fighting for the rest of their life. I feel like we all have our vices and we're kind of like not born in, but like educated into having them. And then that's just something you have to deal. Like I think you're going to be dealing with more insecurity problems than someone who has started off with um too big of an ego. But I think the person who has too big of an ego is going to be fighting until the end of the life to a certain degree, maybe to a lesser degree, more than you, and less than you for like with insecurities. You know. So what I'm saying is, that's how the brain works. What you said, you described how the brain works. I'm not saying that if you start off not being competent at soccer at all, and then you consciously make the choice to practice this move, and then you become better at it, and then it's instinctual. You being better at soccer is instinctual. I'm not saying that at your core you're bad at soccer and you always will be. What I'm saying is that, well, because soccer is not a core characteristic, everything we practice does become easier with time, right? Someone who is a recovered alcoholic for recovered or recovering, I still don't know, but for 10 years, I would trust them more than for 5 years. But again, it would come back to statistics, right? You have proven for a larger uh, amount of time that you are, to be trusted in this situation. And yeah, that's just how I see it.
Then I guess I would ask what a core character trait is. Um,
Again, they're the
that's
predictors of your behavior, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I am giving too lucid an explanation. Yeah,
You understand what I'm saying? Because I feel like insecurity comes close to being one, maybe.
maybe it's the
Um,
byproduct of one or a few of them, perhaps. But hmm. Okay,
but what I would attack if you gave me one is I would say that once again I think my point is that take one of your so-called core characteristics that people don't generally change along, and I would say that you can take someone, you point to one characteristic which should be which they want to change or whatever, and they work hard at it by changing thought processes, by changing the environment around them to influence their thought processes, to changing their behavior to influence their thought processes, and they would change along that line. And I really don't care about comparing them to other people, because what someone changing means is that they were not the same way they are now.
it's just for me. Okay, for me, confidence in someone is harder to gain than loss of confidence. Okay, so if someone betrays you once, for me that's the end. Maybe you give second chances, that's fine,
Okay,
but
what's the character trait? Trustworthiness. Well, the core characteristic,
that's
trustworthiness, right?
that's the reason I don't name them. Maybe it's a combination of their disagreeableness and their, I don't know. It doesn't matter if you name them or not. They're the things that predict your behavior. You want to call it brain structure? Well, I don't know. People who are serial killers have you know, a different brain structure. Wasn't it found that, people with different characteristics taken to the extreme, have different brain structures than people who don't have those characteristics. Well, to a lesser degree, that may be possible for a bunch of things, and we just don't have the science to prove that, right? When they dissect the brains of serial killers, aren't they literally different? Psychopaths? I don't know. That's the thing, right?
Okay, sure, but what I'm saying also, I don't know, but let's say that's true. Let's say it's brain structures. The brain is very plastic. The links between your neurons change all the time, and let's say um, someone who's a psychopath has a smaller frontal lobe because they're uh, less good at inhibiting their actions. Um, okay, maybe that's a bad example because I don't feel like my argument works on that. But since the brain is plastic, I feel like through behavior and thought process and effort and change of environment, whatever the things I'm saying, you can change the way your brain is structured, and that can be the definition of core personality trait or core element of the personality because that can change.
Well, the brain is plastic until a certain point. I mean, I understand, 1% differences after that, but that's why I kind of determined that line to be at 18 years old.
But even after that, the brain is plastic. People that uh, become blind use their occipital lobe for their touch, and that's not a 1% change. I'm sure I can't give you the numbers, but if you understand what I'm saying, like massive changes can occur.
Well, you've taken inhibiting a sense, or well, fully inhibiting a sense. I mean, that's a little bit different, but
Oh, I'm taking it to the extreme, as you like to do.
no, you're not taking it to the extreme. You're not talking about character traits. You're talking about like the way the brain interprets our senses.
Okay, I'm pretty sure the most recent scientific discoveries don't cover what we're talking about, so let's move away from the brain.
Yeah, we're just reading a little bit ahead of the scientific discoveries. That's the interest in the podcast. If you want to stay updated or even like ahead of
We're
it.
just speculating about the links between behavior and uh, and the brain.
I mean, you could call it speculation, but what I would call it is the interpretation of life events and of life experiences, which is all psychology ever is. That's
Dude, what are you talking about? I'm saying what we were talking about is trying to find a link between brain parts and how they change and personality traits, which we can't do.
like from the place we're recording the podcast. You mean?
Yeah.
All right, then maybe that's for another episode. But okay,
No,
so
it's not.
okay, so all right, so we definitely don't agree still.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Again,
Yeah, no, yeah.
I think look, let's maybe try to partially conclude this. I think to a certain extent, what I mean is that you give me someone, let's say I'm friends with them for 10 years, right?
Don't start compare. Sorry, don't start comparing people again.
I'm not comparing anyone.
Okay.
Okay. So you take someone you've known for 10 years. Let's say
Yeah.
you have some sort of insight into their core characteristics.
Hmm.
Let's not talk about to what degree that is. Let's not talk about anything like that, okay? If you were to predict their typical day, statistically, you would probably predict it quite accurately. And it would
Yes.
differ largely from, I don't know,
Someone else's day.
someone else's day. So I'm comparing someone. No, okay.
Yes, I
Maybe
agree.
that's not what I wanted to take, where I wanted to take that.
Hmm.
What I'm saying is, when you're once you're accustomed with someone's core characteristics, I don't know the amount of change you would take. Okay, let me say it like this. Okay, let me come back to my earlier point. It's much harder to gain confidence in someone than to lose it. And what that means to me is that someone could spend 10 years proving to me that they're trustworthy, right? Let's say you're accountant. And then one day, even if their proclivity to steal is at 5%, but they're really in an extreme financial situation. And one day, um, they steal money from you and you notice it somehow. What I am saying is that person is now less trustworthy than a new accountant. And No, no, no. But okay, sure. Compare it to someone. I'm saying, yeah, like my moral conclusions affect my life, and that's fine, I think. And so, what I mean by that is that even 10 years later, when you see that accountant where they developed 10 years of confidence with you, which now don't mean nothing, anything, and then after the time they betrayed you, they gained, 10 more years of confidence with other people, and they have proven that they have changed their character. I truly don't know what it would take for me to hire them again, because even a new accountant would be more trustworthy 10 years later.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that it's good to use heuristics like this, um, to say that if someone overstepped a boundary, you don't have insight into their brain, so you don't know whether they changed. And the fact that they transgress that moral line at some point does make them more likely than other people to do it, something like that. All that I agree with. What I why I don't like the way you talk about it is because we're talking about a person changing, and you need to follow one person throughout their life. And I truly feel the most insight I have about someone is on me.
Right.
And it's debatable even if um I think part of people's lives is discovering who they are and discovering their core personality traits. Uh, so I don't even know myself probably that well, but the only thing I can look at is myself, and I feel like I'm changing over time. And you just take one person, that accountant who betrayed you once. Um, I truly believe that that doesn't mean that isn't uh, that doesn't mean that they're not trustworthy in the sense that you mean it. I don't know how to say this, but I think that it's possible for someone, okay, that accountant betrayed you once. They feel so bad about themselves that they absolutely will never do it again. As a matter of fact, for the rest of infinity.
I think the fact that you have never done it is better proof than someone who tells me that the one time they betrayed me has changed them so much that now they will never do it again for the rest of infinity.
Yeah,
So
and you keep saying better proof, and I agree with you that it's better proof. You shouldn't trust them. You don't have access to the internal processes that prove that they changed.
yeah,
How we defined change is that they change the way they think about stuff, and
I,
you don't have access
I
to that.
just feel
And
like
yeah,
you're being sorry for interrupting, but I feel like you're being a classical philosopher, right? I'm going to give this example for consequentialism, right? Most consequentialists agree that it is not the intention behind your actions that guides their morality, but the result of your actions. So you could have the best intentions possible, right? You could go, I don't know, um, help kids drive. Sorry, drive your. No, no, no,
okay.
no, no, very badly phrased, but you could drive all your neighbors' kids to their school in the morning because you have 2 extra hours where you don't work, and then once you end up in an accident with them, you're a morally wrong person, right? Just because well, even though you had the good intentions. So what I'm saying is, I feel like what you're saying applies from a godlike perspective, from the perspective of a person who knows all of, you know, the universe's future and everything in it. And you're taking kind of the philosophical stance where we're talking about like absolutes. Um, what I am saying is that if we want a practical definition of changing, my definition is, well, not even a safer bet, but the only one, or at least the most optimized one for daily life. Yours is the most optimized one if you're talking about like literally becoming God, right? In your mind, you know that for the rest of
Not
infinity,
right.
yes, 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 right. Because in your mind, now you know that particular thing has reshaped their brain into not being a bad person until the end of infinity. What does that even mean? From perspective of a person, how would you? Okay, here's my question: how would you ever apply it in your life? How would you ever trust someone to have changed in your life? By the way,
I was about to.
that was a 3 minute silence. I edited it down to 4 seconds.
I was about to say it doesn't matter, but guess if you want to apply it, I think that I'm trying to imagine a situation where someone betrays me, and I'm trying to. Um, I don't know. I don't know how to get my point across. I think my point is that that accountant that betrayed you, let's say, had a 10% chance of betraying you in a given, and what they're doing for 10 years is fighting that intuition to betray you, and
You're
one day they're just.
you're quantifying likelihood of behavior like you're God. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, dude, but you're taking um you taking cases to infinity and saying 70% of the time you're doing blah blah blah, and 70% and 30% of the time you would be doing the other thing. I don't know. You're.
Yeah, look, the way
Hmm.
my statistics work is if if in the 100 years of life you have been given, you do something, let's say extreme, right? I'm going back to my extreme, so look, that's it is what it is. If you in the 100 years of life you do that once, to me you're someone who statistically does that. So if you we were to extend life to infinity, you would do that again, surely. And what I mean by that, the validity of, like, I'm blaming you for using the the God method in quantifying behavior. What I mean by infinity specifically is that every next day or like the future to us is unknown. But if you are to take the past and quantify it, someone having done something bad once means that it is most probable they will do it in the future, at least more probable than it is for someone who hasn't done it in the past. So I'm just
And
trying
I
to
hate
find
that. Okay.
I'm just trying to find a way for myself to kind of operate this world with the best statistical knowledge of what my future will be. At least in the extreme cases, for me to be safe, right? The betrayal of a friend, someone stealing money from you. I don't
uh, it's just that, okay, let's say someone betrayed you and then I meet that person and I don't know that they betrayed you, but what happens? You're gonna say I'm taking a godlike perspective again, and that uh, okay, look, they betrayed you. I don't know about the fact that they betrayed you, and I meet them and they seem trustworthy, and I start to trust them, and they never betray me again. What, like, you have a conception of them as not trustworthy, but they never betrayed me, and they changed from the time they knew you to the time they know. I can imagine that situation. I thought of another situation. Like, you're probably gonna say that um, you only hold this opinion about people who are over 18 or whatever. Um, but remember when we were kids and we used to go to, I don't know, our parents' friend's house, and I stole Legos, and one time I stole a camera, and then Dad yelled at me, and now I'm never gonna steal anything again from people.
But this is a hypothetical. We're not actually brothers. So
No, no, no.
so look, I feel like it would take way too long and we would come back to a loop as we are now if I were to, but if I were to talk about why I'm setting the age at 18. But what I mean is like you are truly psychologically flexible before that age, and that's why you know so many psychologists focus on
Okay, but
kids,
okay,
right? Like
yeah.
so
Look, look,
much of
look. You're
psychology is
you're
yeah.
you're comparing people a whole lot, and what psychology, whatever, however scientific psychology is, finds is that the big five personality traits, let's say that's what defines core characteristic, stay constant in terms of rank orderings from
Right.
childhood to
Relative.
adulthood,
Oh, okay. Well, no,
relative
there's no
to
way.
people.
There's no way. That's not
Yeah,
true.
yeah. A neurotic child is going to be a neurotic adult.
Okay, well, then that's the reason I didn't name the big five as core characters of people. I mean, look,
Okay, but
I used to
that's
steal
like
as
the
a
most
child as well.
scientific.
I straight up used to steal money from like our parents' wallets. Like that's what I did, and now I would never do that again.
You didn't steal money from our parents'
Yeah,
wallet.
that's a little known story that is true. Okay, but we're not going to use those examples as like, oh, I've proven my point by giving a life example. That's rubbish. But
But what I'm saying, why I'm talking about I've talked about myself like 2 or 3 times during the episode, is that I th- I think that's the only way of quantifying change is by knowing the internal processes of the person, and that's the way we defined it at the start of the episode. Is that the processes that direct behavior is what needs to change, and you're saying, okay, there's a practical definition. I'm not going to trust this person because I don't think they'll change, but you don't know what's going on inside their head. I know what's going on inside my head, which is why I can talk about myself and say that I've changed. You know what I'm saying?
well, yeah, but you would like to believe that you know what's going on inside your head, but I don't even believe that. I don't even think you know your core characters. I think you adapt your identity and the way you think about yourself to your actions, but I don't even think you could reliably predict your actions, quite frankly. Maybe you're the person you know the best in the universe among all other people, but I don't even think you know yourself 100%. That's why I'm saying godlike perspective and not yourself perspective, you know?
Okay, then
Wouldn't you say that's true? That you don't know
okay,
yourself fully?
okay. Let's say there's a person that um, goes through loops of being in a bad state and then for like 6 months and then going back into a good state and being productive for another 3 months, and then for 6 months again they uh, become like they adopt a sedentary lifestyle and gain weight and whatever, and then they go back to the 3 months of being productive, and then eventually they find some sort of balance and they truly change, and now they're not going to be the same way for the rest of their life. Fully, it, you're saying that past behavior is the best predictor of future. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior,
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
but I think that person, which I'm referencing to a person in real life,
Yeah, it's hypothetical. It's not me. So
he knows what I'm talking about. But
he or
yeah,
she or they know. Look, I well, let's just come out and say it, right? You're talking about me, but I think that
okay,
at
so yeah, okay. Then if you've opened the gate, then you're never gonna change, dude. In 2 months, you're gonna become fat again.
no, that's literally not what I'm saying. Even if I'm not fat for the next 80 years of my life, I think that's at my core identity. Because if you take me to infinity and you tire me out of suppressing who I am, or you put me alone in this world, right? Any of those thought experiments that I used previously, I would of course be fat, and that was proven by, we're not going to say the illness that has haunted the world for the last 3 years, because I think it gets a disclaimer, but that was proven by that. We were living in an isolated space, and I gained weight, and
Yeah, but you want a practical definition of change, and a practical definition of change is restricted to a person's lifetime. When you
what in
take it out to
which
infinity, there's
during which they live in society. Yeah, but what I mean by infinity is that it's a better way to picture what statistics mean. Is that if someone is 70% likely to murder someone, they're going to be doing a whole lot of murdering, more so than someone who has a 10% chance. And even the person who, the person who has a 70% chance has so much of a chance to do that that they're going to do it in the 100 years they have in this life, right? So that's
can
the risk
someone
there.
who has a 20% chance of murdering someone reduce that percentage to 15?
Yeah, but you're just saying that like a normal person has 10% chance of murdering someone in the same situation the person that has 70% of murdering someone. Like I where you're just pulling those out. That doesn't mean anything. What I'm saying is, let's say even you, let's say you're a pretty good person, you're a pretty stand-up guy. What if I pull out the following statistic? You have 0% chance of murdering someone, right? The person, what I mean by that, like, even if the serial killer has a 2% chance of murdering someone, once they have done it, I'll never know that percentage for real, right? I'll never know your percentage, I'll never know their percentage unless I'm God. But what I know from them once they have done it is, and I think this is like, unfortunately, my best point about this, right? Once a certain moral threshold has been passed, and that's why I'm taking extreme cases, because it's harder to do that with betrayal or, you know, lack of loyalty or just lying because they happen every day, and then those percentages would matter more. But what I'm saying is, even if their percentage is 2%, once they have done it, they have proven that it's above zero, and that's what I'm afraid of. That's why I'll never associate with them.
I think absolutely everyone's percentage of murder is above zero. If someone, I don't know, kills my family in front of me, I'm gonna kill. You know,
Okay. All right, that's fine. You're saying that, but you'll probably spend your entire life without doing it. So I don't know. Like I'll never know. You'll never know.
so what you're saying is like you need to hold on to the fact that if I'm put in that situation, I'm not gonna murder that.
I look. I
For the
don't
sake
know.
of your argument, you're trying to hold on to that thing. I don't think
Am
that's
I? Am I?
plausible.
I
I
don't
think
know.
am I?
Do I need that for my argument? All I need is for someone to
I
have
don't
done
even
it
know
for me to
what
know
your
that.
argument is anymore, dude.
You know what? I think we're stuck in a loop. Okay. Let me say one statement that maybe I'll summarize my point. If you
Okay,
say,
you wanna say one thing and then I say one thing and then that's it.
I'll say one thing.
Okay, and then I'll say one thing.
All right, but I'm gonna say with gravitas, so it kind of overshadows your thing.
Yeah, but there's the recency effect. I'll be the last one they hear.
Yeah, but there's a primacy effect.
He's right, and there's no one in between.
Okay, so the crossing of certain moral thresholds define you for life, and there is nothing to be done to undo though having crossed those moral thresholds defining you. Quite badly phrased, but I'm pretty proud of that one.
The crossing of moral thresholds don't define you. Thank you.
Wow. All right. So, okay. So I was wondering if we would need to prolong the episode and talk about what our conclusions about change mean about unconditional loyalty. But I think we could try to talk about
Save that
unconditional.
for another one.
Yeah, save that for another one.
Okay, good.
So let's say our figured it out rating on 3.
Didn't figure it out.
Yeah, we absolutely didn't figure it out, but that's why it brings variety to the podcast. We can't end everything with a 9 out of 10.
I
Okay, so
think
like,
I think this was like pretty bad. We like did not come to pretty much any conclusion
well, you know
where
what? We've
anything we
stated both
agree
of our
on.
opinions, and now we can receive feedback on either one of them,
Yeah,
and
yeah, okay.
that's valuable, I think. So let me say this. Let's give 2 ratings. Let's give the one at the beginning of the episode and the one at the end of the episode.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, once I have stated my opinion about, um, let's say our agree or agreeableness percent, like how do I say this? How much we agreed at the beginning and how much we agreed at the end. So
Mm-hmm.
once we laid out our opinions, and then once we discussed our arguments.
Oh, is that what figured it out rating is like how much we agree on?
It's not. No, it's not even that. I'm wrong about that.
Right, right.
It
I
is
think
how well we like outlined what it is.
I think I have a better conception of what you think about it in my head, and I think I have a better conception of what I think about it in my head than I had at the beginning of the episode.
Right. So let's say it went from 3 to 4.
Yeah, I would say 5. I'm optimistic.
3 to 5. Say
Yeah.
okay, but I mean it's not even 3 at the beginning because that's not what it means as you said. But let's just say it for that, for the fancy of it. Okay. So therefore we had a 2 out of 10 percentage increase, and therefore we are 20% likelier taken to infinity to become. All right, we should end this.
Yes,
Go
5
to
out of 10 figured it out rating, and the way we're talking right now, it seems like it's a 5.
all right. So go to thinkinbros.com to follow all our socials. Thank you for all the support. We've
Thank you.
received countless fan letters. We've offended the legacy of Carl Jung in our last episode. If you're interested by that, he said thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. We debunked that. So we apologize to Carl Jung and his the extended family of Carl Jung and his legacy. All
I
right.
am Barack Obama, and I agree with this statement.
Wow. Well, that just kind of invalidates everything I just said before that. So a little bit disrespectful. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.